When I was born, I didn't cry or fuss at all. Mom thought she had given birth to a perfectly well-behaved baby. Every day, aside from drinking breast milk and formula, my favorite thing to do was just stare at the ceiling and space out. At first, Mom just assumed the baby was introverted and shy. Little did she know, the reason I spaced out was because there was an evolution system panel constantly reminding me to level up. After satisfying myself with a whole bunch of milk, the panel showed that the energy gauge was fully charged. But then a notification popped up on the panel that snapped me to attention. First evolution unlocked. Choose your evolution path. 3 options that all looked pretty decent put me deep in thought. Option 1, rapid growth. Sure, it had a 10% development speed boost, but it just wasn't appealing enough for me. Options 2 and 3 both increased base attributes. It was hard to immediately judge which one would suit me better, but just by reading the names of the 2 options, I could tell they each pointed toward a completely different evolution direction. After 3 seconds of deliberation, I thought back to my past life as a short video content creator, constantly getting pushed by fans to post new content, staying up until 3 in the morning all the time, and eventually wrecking my health from all of it. That experience made me realize that a strong, healthy body is the foundation of everything, so I focused my mind into the panel and chose the human beast evolution path. Right away, my constitution attribute jumped up to 2. Then I started feeling the changes in my body. First, my breathing became long, deep, and powerful. Next, my mind felt noticeably clearer. No more zoning out. Then my stomach started growling way more than usual. But what really surprised me was that my vision could now actually make out the evening news playing on the TV. I opened my eyes wide and stared at the news on the screen. Then without even thinking, I stuffed my little fist into my mouth and started sucking away, completely entertained. But just as I was really getting into it, the TV suddenly went black. Mom had turned it off. Then she grabbed my wet little fingers and noticed the little one's eyes were unusually bright and clear. She carried me away from the TV while saying out loud, "Little baby, can't watch TV, it'll hurt your eyes." Inside I was screaming like crazy, "I want to watch, I want to watch. My eyes are perfectly fine." Mom thought that taking away the TV would make the baby cry and throw a fit, but instead the baby just pouted with a dissatisfied little face. She happily leaned down close to my little face and planted a big loud kiss. I turned my face away in annoyance. With a mental age of 17, I wasn't exactly comfortable with that kind of affection, but seeing me turn away just made Mom even happier. "Does baby want mommy to kiss the left cheek and then the right?" So she leaned in again and gave me another one. Feeling a wave of hunger hit me, I opened my mouth and let out a symbolic little cry, then immediately calmed back down, patiently waiting for Mom to mix up the formula. By now, Mom and I had developed a little system over the past few days. A dry cry meant I was hungry and wanted to eat. If I needed to go to the bathroom, I'd cry while grabbing at my diaper. A baby that could express its needs clearly not only avoided a lot of misunderstandings, but also made life a whole lot easier for Mom. Right then, Mom was mixing formula while mumbling to herself. I quietly chewed on my pacifier without making a sound. Before long, a whole bottle of milk was gone, but I still felt like I hadn't had nearly enough. I rubbed my mouth and let out another little cry. Only after gulping down a second bottle did I let out a satisfied milky burp. As my appetite kept growing, the energy gauge was increasing by 2% every day. At this rate, the second evolution would come in about a month. Just then, a little girl who looked about 7 or 8 years old came bouncing and hopping into the room. Her skirt was all crumpled and wrinkled, her white shirt was covered in dirt, and she was stomping around in a pair of little red shoes. She plopped herself down on the floor with a thud. Mom took one look at the little girl's state and glared at her furiously. "Did you get into a fight with a classmate again?" The little girl heard that and proudly lifted her head. "I made progress today. I beat 2 of them this time." So Mom kept herself busy in the kitchen while scolding her daughter. Kiki pouted defiantly and said nothing, but her eyes were darting around restlessly. Then she suddenly noticed her little brother staring at her, flashing a grin. Though the smile carried just a hint of mockery, she let out a huff, baring a pair of little tiger teeth, then shook a fist in the air, warning her little brother not to mess with her. Just then, Dad Sonching walked in. He had been planning to go hold his baby son, but his wife immediately shot him down because of the cigarette smell on him. With no choice left, he rolled up his sleeves and went into the kitchen to help. Not long after, the whole family sat down together to enjoy dinner. But halfway through the meal, Dad Songqing opened the fridge and pulled out from the freezer a few things that looked like candy. I assumed it was just a treat for the pet cat, but to my surprise, Dad put one piece into Mom's bowl, Keek's bowl, the pet cat's bowl, and even one into his own. At that, Kiki put down her chopsticks and loudly protested, "I'm not eating this thing. It tastes like literal garbage. This is a precious treat we only get once a week, and you're complaining about it? Without this, do you think you'd even win any of those fights with your classmates?" Hearing Dad's explanation, Kiki froze for a moment, then wrinkled her nose. Her face twisted into a look of pure agony. In the end, she squeezed her eyes shut and just swallowed it down. I was really curious about what kind of candy everyone was eating. It wasn't until later, when Dad and Mom were chatting, that I found out. That thing was called honeybug resin. Listening to them talk about things I didn't fully understand yet, I held my bottle up high, hiding the shock I felt inside. It seemed like this world had way more secrets than I had ever imagined. A month later, watching my energy gauge fill up to full, I kicked off the second evolution choice. 3 options again. This time I went with the mind form evolution path. The instant my spirit attribute gained a point, I felt like time itself had suddenly slowed down. No, to put it more accurately, it was more like my thinking speed had suddenly shot up. Even the entire past month of experiences flashed through my mind at lightning speed, just as I was trying to take in what new changes had come with this. Mom came and scooped me up and set me down on a large red cloth spread across the floor. The cloth was covered in all kinds of little objects, and according to tradition, Eni's 1-month celebration called for a grabbing ceremony. Whatever you grabbed would predict your future, showing what kind of career path you'd take. There I was, crawling on the red cloth, about to just grab something random to get it over with, when the information panel chose that exact moment to unlock the career module. When I looked again at the objects laid out on the cloth, the corresponding career names floated up in front of my eyes. First up was a keyboard panel, which showed the corresponding career as video content creator. Low pay, high burnout rate, and you had to constantly deal with fans pushing you to upload more. Pass. My eyes swept around the cloth, looking through all the random careers on display. There were even some high-risk ones in the mix. I crawled around, searching carefully, until finally my eyes landed on 3 items: Sniper, Explorer, and Brawler. 3 careers caught my eye. Considering my human-beast evolution path, only becoming a Brawler and training the Brawler skill tree would let me fully take advantage of my high constitution. So I crawled over hand and foot to the full suit of training gear, hugged it against my chest, and flashed the biggest, brightest little smile on my face. At that moment, the career panel notification popped up. First career, Brawler loading complete. Although the career panel was completely blank at this point, I still felt an overwhelming wave of excitement. Before this, the only way to evolve was to eat a massive amount of food, but I was limited by my own stomach capacity, so I could only evolve once a month. Now with the career panel to learn skills from, I could be grinding and training at the same time. Just thinking about it made me pumped up. Once the ceremony was over, I started researching how to actually get career skills. For Brawler, the skill learning would definitely have to wait until I could run and jump on my own. As for the burst coefficient and agility coefficient in the career panel, they probably only came into play built on top of the constitution base. In any case, the top priority right now was still to increase constitution. So for the next month, I focused entirely on chugging milk. Every day, it was either breast milk or large amounts of formula. Without fail, as the energy gauge kept climbing higher and higher, I hit my 3rd evolution. This time I again chose the human beast path, thinking that once my constitution got strong enough, this baby body would be like a tiger or leopard. With the self-protection skills being confusingly deceptive too, nobody would ever suspect that a baby still wearing diapers was actually a Brawler. Once my constitution attribute hit 3, I could feel my legs filling up with strength. I pressed both hands against the railing of the crib and slowly pushed myself up to stand. Right at that moment, Mom walked into the bedroom. Oh my goodness, baby stood up all by himself. She had a look of total amazement on her face. She never expected her 2-month-old child to have already figured out how to stand. Baby is so amazing. She cheered me on while reaching her hands around around me, to make sure I wouldn't fall off the bed. With Mom there to protect me, I went even harder. The big wide bed at home became my training ground. I started by trying to stand without using my hands, relying only on my 2 legs. After falling down about 10 times, I managed to wobble upright and hold my balance. Once I had my footing, I tried taking my first steps. At the start I couldn't get the balance right, and one step would send me tumbling. But after each fall, I bounced right back up, full of life and energy. Mom stood nearby, smiling warmly, watching her baby learn to walk. I kept at it for a full half hour before I finally felt tired. When my status dropped to 45%, I just dropped flat onto the bed, and was out cold the second my eyes shut. The third evolution had gotten my vocal development to a basically functional stage. Now I could finally start learning to talk. Baby, what's this? Leaf. That's right, baby is so smart. Even though she hadn't taken the baby in for any official testing, seeing how fast the child picked up everything made her strongly suspect her son was a child prodigy. Raising him herself was both low stress and deeply rewarding. The more she thought about it, the more pleased she felt. But little did she know, when I was brought into the study, I was even happier. Since the things I could access at this stage were still very limited, self-teaching was basically the only way I could develop career skills. But the phone, computer, and TV were all being watched closely by Mom. For now, the only option was to dig up some relevant book in the study, and try to teach myself from it. So there in the study, I opened my eyes wide and scanned the bookshelf carefully, and eventually spotted a pretty suitable one. I reached out and pointed at that Sonda Basics textbook, sounding out each word deliberately. Book, I want book. Does baby want this book? Even though she had no idea why her son would want a Sonda Martial Arts Basics textbook, she still handed it to me with a smile. The moment I got the book, I opened it right away, eager to start reading through the descriptions of Sonda fundamentals, and the technical breakdowns of each move. I started to feel a lot more confident. Then looking at the illustrated diagrams in the textbook, I felt like I could actually imitate them pretty well. So I nodded to myself, and decided to test it out first. Every punch I threw, I would cross-check against the textbook's descriptions, and correct the little details in my technique. After punching for a full half hour straight, the career panel finally showed a change. Seeing just that tiny sliver of experience in basic martial arts, I was genuinely thrilled, because it proved that I really could self-teach skills. And with that, I swung my little fists around with even more excitement, until the status bar dropped to 35%. Everything went black in front of me, and I just crashed flat onto the bed and fell asleep instantly. When I was finally woken up, it was already 10 o'clock at night. Since I had overtrained today, I ended up drinking 3 whole bottles of milk before letting out a satisfied burp, because my son had such a huge appetite. At first, Yeson still thought it was good that the child could eat so much, but when he started going through a whole can of formula every 2 days, she started worrying about the household budget. After all, even if both husband and wife had steady incomes as teachers at a public middle school, this was starting to strain them. Hearing Yeson muttering to herself in the kitchen, saying she wanted to go back to school to teach classes, to earn some extra tutoring income to help cover expenses, I could only keep pretending I didn't understand, while quietly feeling unsettled inside. As my evolutions kept going, the amount of food I'd need to eat would only keep growing. What would happen if the family couldn't afford it down the line? I needed to find some way for the family to make more money, but a baby who hadn't even hit 3 months yet was a bit too young to be worrying about this kind of thing. Oh well, I'd wait until next month when I get to go to school with Mom, and maybe by then some ideas would come to me. One evening, our whole family gathered for dinner together, and Dad Songqing brought home some good news. The school had assigned him to a key advanced class, and once he was teaching in the key class, his income would naturally rise along with it, and his own career prospects would look a lot brighter too. There at the dinner table, Songqing cracked open a beer, and happily raised his glass for a toast. This was definitely something the whole family could celebrate. Just then, Yeson also announced that she would return to school early to teach, to lighten the family's financial load. After Songqing had reviewed the household budget his wife had written down, he reluctantly agreed to her plan. Then she continued and said, "I'm also going to submit an application to the Geological Survey Office, and see if I can get lucky enough to draw another pass to the old world." Old world pass. That was the second time I had heard these 2 words. Going with the instincts of a 3-month-old baby, I had a feeling that it was a very dangerous place. Meanwhile, big sister Kiki sat there with a long face, quietly listening to the adults talk. She roughly summed it all up herself. It was basically because baby brother was eating too much, that she'd have less spirit resin money going forward. Then she raised her head and glared straight at me. What's the point of drinking so much milk? It just all comes out as pee in the end. Can't you just drink more water? I pretended not to understand, and just shot her a big stupid grin. After grinning, I casually wiped the drool from the corner of my mouth. Kiki, you've got some nerve talking about your little brother. Yeon gave her a tired, annoyed look. Every single meal you're just loading up on meat. I tell you to eat your vegetables and fruits for balanced nutrition, and you never listen. I eat meat because I need the energy. Otherwise, where am I supposed to get the strength to beat two classmates at once? For a moment, the rowdy, chaotic dinner table actually felt a lot more lighthearted. After a week of practicing the Sanda basics, I finally got my first chance at real combat training. My sparring partner was the family's pet cat, Pink Sixie. Ever since I started practicing the Sanda basics, she had always been hanging around watching me, and oddly enough, ever since my second evolution added a point of intelligence, it seemed like I could now understand what she was saying. She seemed to want to spar with me, so I got into my stance, and Pink Sixie stepped up to face me. The whole thing, one human, one cat, standing pretty close together, roughly the same weight, both with blazing fighting spirit in their eyes. In the next instant, Pink Sixie leaped, lunging straight at me, and I couldn't keep my footing, getting knocked flat on my back. Pink Sixie stood over me on top, pressing both little paws against my chest. Our eyes locked on each other, both looking equally awkward. She let out a meow, as if to say, "You really think that punching style is useful? You sure that's enough to protect yourself?" Didn't expect that as a brawler. My very first real fight ended like that. In the days that followed, I threw myself into Sanda training with even more focus. After the fourth evolution brought another constitution boost, I could now not only throw a clean hook, but also flow into combo chains with footwork. Looking over the skill panel again, for a baby just hitting the 6-month mark, I was pretty satisfied with the progress. At this rate, before I even turned 1, I'd definitely be a level 1 brawler. Today I'd push the boxing experience to 100, and after the skill leveled up, there should be a reward too. That thought got me pretty excited, so I went ahead with that energy, and just as I was pushing my basic boxing up to level 1, the career panel did exactly what I expected. Just as I was pushing my basic boxing up to level 1, the career panel immediately popped up with the reward notification. Seeing 3 free attribute points, without hesitation I put all 3 into Constitution. Looking at myself from the outside now, I was only slightly taller than other babies my age, but with my shirt off, my body could genuinely be described as solid. Even though eating a lot kept my body fat percentage a bit high, and training like crazy every day still hadn't produced 6-pack abs, the energy stored inside my body was already taking on the quality of a human beast. Now I could finally see clearly the progress of both evolution paths. Seeing my constitution at 11.5, I figured that once I got it up to 30, I'd officially unlock the juvenile stage human beast. After finishing the day's training, I quietly crept to the doorway of the study and heard Mom giving an online class. She was in the middle of teaching a classical text called The Peach Blossom Spring. She had already finished explaining the original passage, and was now talking about the historical background behind it. A spring breeze swept through the peach grove, and everything felt so peaceful. The Peach Blossom Spring, as it turns out, was one of the very few recorded holovoid entrances in ancient Hua Kingdom. Its exact location was not actually on Earth. It was somewhere immeasurably far away, connected through a spacetime bridge that linked it to the Peach Blossom Forest. The reason the ancients could never find their way back to the Peach Blossom Spring was simply because they hadn't yet discovered how to control the spacetime bridge. Today, all of us can use Hua Kingdom's holovoid entrance number 3 to get to the Peach Blossom Spring quite easily. I leaned against the doorway and listened quietly. So that was what the holovoid was. Then what exactly was the old world? After dinner that night, Dad gave me a much more precise answer. The holovoid is a place where time and space are completely chaotic. Inside it, sometimes taking just one step forward lands you in a completely different world. Other times, you might be standing completely still for a few seconds, while 100 years pass by outside. The old world is a special existence within the holovoid. It's essentially a copy of a specific stretch of time and space. For example, say, you spent a day at home. The holovoid would then replicate many identical copies of that same day. Even though it's a copy, everything that existed in that day is real and tangible within it. People from outside use entrances to go into the old world and gather resources. Simply put, it's like running a dungeon in a game. After explaining all of that, Songqing noticed I was still deep in thought and asked, "Did my explanation make sense? Son, can you understand?" Friends who are watching, did everyone catch that? If you got it, give a thumbs up in the comments. Drop a 1 if you understood. I gave a serious little nod, but the very next second, my expression suddenly went stiff. Dad, does that mean this world we're living in right now could also be a copy? Songqing's eyes flashed with surprise. He never expected his child not only to understand, but to immediately follow up with such a sharp question. In the end, Dad laughed and explained that any life form that left its own old world would immediately cause it to collapse. The people of our world can freely come and go through the hollow void, so we couldn't possibly be copies. Right after that, Dad noticed I had started my daily Sanda training, since he had seen me a while back carrying that Sanda Basics textbook around, reading it, and then trying to copy the moves from it. But today, just as he was about to turn and leave, the combo sequence I was running through made Songqing freeze in place. His eyes locked on my movements and wouldn't let go. Dad, are you okay? I noticed his weird expression and stopped my training to ask. It's nothing. Songqing forced out a stiff smile. Your technique is improving pretty quickly. Then Songqing made up his mind right then and there. Starting tomorrow, after your sister gets home from school, I'll train both of you together. I was thrilled. After all, Dad was a professional PE teacher, but big sister Kiki was completely unenthused. When the second evening came around, Dad started Kiki on physical conditioning drills first, then turned his attention to me, giving me hands-on combat technique instruction. Seeing that my boxing had already gotten to a solid foundation, Dad demonstrated the basic Sanda kicks for me. He broke down each move step by step, and I followed along copying each one, constantly refining the details. I gradually started to feel everything click into place. Then suddenly, a panel notification floated up in front of my eyes. At first I was a bit startled, then immediately lit up inside with joy. The last panel module had finally been activated. I immediately tested the talent mimicry state. In that instant, my pupils shrank slightly, and my gaze became sharp. My eyes felt like they had turned into a high-definition camcorder, recording every single detail of the moves Songqing demonstrated, and locking them firmly in memory. Through observation, imitation, and correction, my movements kept getting more and more precise. At this point, Songqing gradually noticed something off about his son's state, where before his son still needed him to correct various small errors in technique. All of a sudden, every move his son demonstrated was flawlessly executed. Looking at his absurdly gifted son, Songqing quietly let out a deep breath. Fully developed at birth, not only could he crawl and stand, but had already learned to walk on his own. By 2 months, he was already into dancing and rapping. By 3 months, not only could he run and jump, he had even self-taught martial arts. Looking at the reward listed under Hua Kingdom's Prodigy Protection Law for parents, a 10 million yuan development subsidy, Songqing started getting ideas. When I found out that being officially recognized as a child prodigy came with a 10 million yuan reward, I started pushing Dad to register me. So we went online and submitted the application materials. But in the end, because I hadn't reached the minimum registration age, which was 2 years old, we were officially rejected. That was when Dad Songqing said, "Don't put too much pressure on yourself. This is a national level prodigy program with extremely high standards. Not qualifying is perfectly normal." But I wasn't having any of that. I had Dad download 5 terabytes of study materials and planned to spend every day at home using the talent mimicry state, grinding experience hard, all for that 10 million reward. That night came around again, the weekly special treat night. Mom pulled out from the fridge 4 pieces of honeybug resin. As she was about to hand them out, I spoke up from the side and asked her, "Mom, can I have a little of that?" Probably seeing that all my teeth had grown in, and I could already digest solid food just fine, Mom decided to split her own share and give it to me. That stuff really did taste exactly like what Kiki described. Honestly, not far off from garbage, but Mom had cut off just a tiny bit and dissolved it in hot water, and the smell was genuinely overwhelming. But for the sake of leveling up, I was ready to go all in. With a dead serious expression, I held my breath and drank it down like medicine, all in one go. Only after swallowing it completely did I dare breathe again. At first, the bug smell spread through my whole mouth, and it really did make you want to throw up. But right after that, a warm current flowed down through my throat. In that moment, the energy gauge jumped straight up by 2%. The nutrition packed into that one moment was worth a full day of drinking milk. Clearly, this food from the hollow void was genuinely something special. I went through a half-month stretch, focused mainly on kicking and footwork training, and with the talent mimicry state boosting everything, both my kicking technique and footwork made it successfully to level 1. After 2 abilities leveled up, I earned a total of 6 free attribute points. This time I didn't put them all into Constitution. Instead, I considered the mimicry state on my talent panel, and figured that for better mimicry results, I'd need to raise my mental power. My whole scalp started tingling, and my forehead felt like it was about to burst. My brain had this sensation of being torn apart, but when I opened my eyes again, the whole world seemed noticeably clearer. So I did an experiment and activated the mimicry state, then started imitating the sounds of the pet cat Jushipu. Jushipu tilted her head to one side, and I tilted mine and let out one back. Jushipu's chubby face crumpled, clearly feeling like this two-legged creature was mocking her meows. Totally boring. She turned and walked away, but right then, in front of my eyes, a panel notification appeared. After activating the mimicry state, from just following along with the pet cat and making a few meowing sounds, I had actually mastered the language of cats. After spending a half hour interacting with Jushipu, my cat language skill in the panel had gained 2 experience points. Unfortunately though, Jushipu was not a very dedicated teacher. She kept repeating the same few phrases over and over, clearly just phoning it in. I started wondering whether if I successfully evolved into the mind form path, would I also gain the ability to transmit information through thoughts? Just like that, in my downtime between regular training, I had a new hobby, chatting with the cat. Time passed quickly and summer was getting close. The spring virus wave that had swept through the city had died down, and parents with young children were finally breathing easier. When Mom Yesan wasn't giving online classes, she would push the stroller and take me for walks around the neighborhood. Her original idea was to get her kid to interact more with children his own age. Instead of spending all day at home talking to a fictional character, she was worried things would go sideways if this kept up. I sat in the stroller, quietly watching the other babies around my age. Just then, a little girl suddenly burst into loud wailing, and right after, a little boy started crying too. Whatever their reasons were for crying, I found them ridiculously noisy. Some of the moms noticed the one baby, who was sitting quietly and not crying at all, not even sucking his fingers. They all complimented my mom, saying that Yi Mama's baby was so well behaved, so polite. If only their own kid was that easy, they'd be sleeping peacefully every night. Mom Yesan lit up hearing all the compliments. Everyone likes hearing strangers praise their child. If she hadn't already told the baby before leaving the house to stay low-key outside, don't talk, who knows how many more people would have gathered. Right then, one of the moms suddenly said, looking at those eyes, this baby seems really smart. Have you had her IQ tested at the hospital? Might be a little genius. Right, Yi Mama. I've been reading online that a lot of child prodigies at just 1 or 2 years old already stand out from the crowd. Hearing everyone say that, Yesan nervously kept waving it off, trying to figure out how to brush it aside. When one of the moms came up to the stroller, she held out one finger, smiled and asked me, "Baby, what number is this? If you get it right, Auntie will give you candy." Everyone waited curiously for my answer, because a 6-month-old who could understand adult speech and respond with a few words would say a lot about that baby's intelligence level. Naturally, I wasn't going to entertain this group of nosy moms, and instead turned my face away toward a stray cat crouching by the flower bed. I excitedly meowed at it, and the moms all looked visibly awkward. Mom Yesan, on the other hand, quietly sighed with relief. The stray cat, hearing the meow, turned its head in confusion, and when it didn't find anything interesting, it turned around and ran off. But there were plenty of stray cats in the neighborhood, so next chance I got, I'd have a chat with some of them, and grind my cat language skill experience. Ever since adding 6 spirit attribute points last time, I could now fully self-teach the rest of the Sanda techniques on my own, just by watching video tutorials. Looking at the Brawler career experience bar, with 21 more points to go until level up, I felt a surge of excitement. Couldn't wait to see what kind of effect and reward the level up would bring. In the days that followed, I kept up 3 training sessions a day, watching the panel numbers shift constantly. 2 weeks later, I opened the career panel with a racing heart, and when I saw the level up confirmation prompt, I made the choice without hesitation. When I could see the panel clearly again, what awaited me completely blew my expectations. The reward for my first career level up turned out to be far beyond anything I'd imagined. Looking at the combat specialty exploit strike description, I couldn't help feeling a little eager to test it out. I felt like my current strength should be enough to go a few rounds with Pink Sixie now. I spent all 10 bonus attribute points from the reward, and almost immediately felt a surge of power explode inside my body. Then my arms grew noticeably thicker, and now with just a bit of flexing, even the biceps stood out clearly. My head also became sharp and clear, as all the learning from the past months flashed through my mind one by one. With such a perfect state, I absolutely had to find Pink Sixie and have a rematch. But when I walked up to her, Pink Sixie just yawned, not exactly friendly in her tone. I stood there, gave an awkward little smile, and said, "Cece, come on, let's have a quick round." Pink Sixie flicked her fur, the corners of her mouth curling up slightly, looking almost like a cold smirk. I had a quiet feeling this wasn't going to go well. Was this cat actually holding a grudge? In the next moment I heard Pink Sixie let out a sharp cry, and in a flash of movement, she was already at my feet. Pink Sixie had expected this fight to end just as quickly as the last one, but I wasn't the same little baby from a few months ago. When she slammed into me, I rolled cleanly to absorb the impact, and after dispersing the force, I held my ground firmly, while also creating some distance between us. Pink Sixie's colorful eyes went wide in surprise. Seeing that, she retracted her claws, using the fleshy pads of her paws as fists, and launched into a furious offensive. I didn't meet her head-on, instead using footwork to keep moving and stay out of reach, looking for openings to counter. Pink Sixie's attacks were blindingly fast, and on the surface it looked like she had the upper hand. But just as she jumped, ready to pounce and finish the fight, I activated Exploit Strike, swiftly shot in with a high kick, driving hard toward Pink Sixie's belly. Just as my foot was about to connect, Pink Sixie twisted her body in midair, forcibly changed direction, and landed on the sofa nearby. She shook her head, her eyes full of shock. She had actually been pushed back by a two-legged creature. Then I also sat down on the sofa, catching my breath in big gulps. The fight had only lasted a few minutes, but under such intense focus, it was genuinely exhausting. Looking at my experience gain, that fight just now was worth a full hour of high-intensity training. I then shot Pink Sixie a satisfied grin and said, "So what do you say? Can we keep sparring like this going forward?" She seemed to have recognized my potential, because Pink Sixie's attitude was noticeably more patient now. She let out a few soft meows in reply. I happily ran over to Pink Sixie and bowed to her with a respectful fist salute. Time flew by fast. By the time I was 9 months old, my height had already reached 87 centimeters, which made me look like a 2-year-old. Physically speaking, actually, my fitness was already well past the level of a typical teenager. Parents in this world took their children's development very seriously, and with honeybug resin as a supplement, many children developed much faster than normal. Kids around 1-year-old walking and eating on their own wasn't unusual at all. One day, I grabbed a can of sparkling water and walked it over to Big Sister Kiki, but when she saw me getting close, she looked immediately suspicious and asked, "What do you want?" "What is it?" "Nothing. Here, for you." After saying that, I proactively reached out and handed her the water. "Sis, can you be my sparring partner for Sanda practice?" Kiki stared at me in disbelief, thinking she must have misheard. Even though the little runt had been growing unusually fast, her height was already a solid head taller than me at 122 centimeters. Finding her as a sparring partner was basically just asking to get beaten up. But looking at that cheeky little expression, somehow she felt not just a little tempted, but her hands were even itching. After a minute of negotiation, the two of them shut the bedroom door, and Kiki cracked her knuckles with an evil grin. "Just so you know, when I beat you up in a bit, you're not allowed to cry." and you definitely can't tell Mom. Got it. I promise I won't say a word. And with that, I kicked off the ground and charged. At first Kiki didn't take me seriously at all, ready to kick me straight back with one foot. But I quickly sidestepped her kick, grabbed Kiki's leg at the same time, bent down, leaned forward, and drove my head hard into her stomach. Kiki let out a yelp, and completely lost her balance, crashing down onto the bed. She scrambled up immediately, and stared at me with wide eyes. That fall hadn't really hurt, but the mental shock was massive. Impossible, absolutely impossible. This little brother of hers hadn't even been born a full year yet. She racked her brain furiously, desperately trying to explain this impossible thing. It didn't take long before she realized Mom had just brought the baby home one day, and nobody had ever actually seen the baby being born, so there was only one explanation. She turned and bolted out of the bedroom, shouting at the top of her lungs, "Mom, you've been tricked. Brother isn't your real child." She ran into the living room, calling out to Yesan, Mom, you've been deceived. Brother isn't your biological child. He's an alien, sent here to destroy the Earth." I stood there with a bright smile, waiting for the entertainment to unfold. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, Mom finished her online class, and the very first thing she did after coming out was grab Kiki by the ear and give her a thorough scolding. "If you keep making this much noise and disturbing my class, you're getting no meat at dinner." Kiki rubbed her ear, eyes filled with righteous fury. Mom is definitely going to be like those supporting characters in movies, the ones who refuse to believe the main character and end up getting eaten by the alien. After Yesan got the full story, when Songqing came home, she told him about it right away. So it was time for round 2 between me and Kiki. This time Kiki went all out on the attack, determined to force the alien to show its true form, while I calmly and methodically deflected her moves, looking for openings in her technique. This kind of high-intensity sparring really did grind experience fast, and having absorbed all 5 terabytes of study material, I was at this point every bit a seasoned brawler with real experience, knowing exactly how to counterattack effectively in actual combat, and even how to throw off your opponent's rhythm. Kiki, on the other hand, even though she had trained systematically for a few years, she was too lazy to dig deep into the details, so her technique was a bit rough. Right then, when she threw a kick with too much force and left herself open, I immediately rushed in, landed a clean leg sweep takedown, combined with the exploit strike damage boost. Even with the carpet to soften the fall, Kiki still hit the ground hard enough to split her lip a little. She lay there gasping, staring blankly at the ceiling, with absolute despair on her face. It's over. The alien is going to rule the Earth. The speed of his son's progress had once again blown past Songqing's expectations. It looked like they were getting very close to the threshold for the Prodigy program, so Songqing made a few extra side dishes for the night, wanting to give both kids a good nutritional boost. The summer break that followed lasted 2 months, and gold-tier training partner Kiki officially came online. She was dead set on beating her little brother and exposing his true alien form. I was more than happy to keep sparring with her every time she challenged me, since in mimicry state, live combat was an insanely efficient way to grind experience. Time slipped by, and October came around fast. It was time for my first birthday in this reborn life. At the dinner table, Mom and Dad clapped and sang me a birthday song. Kiki got her ear pinched by Yesan, and reluctantly hummed along for a bit. I sat in my chair, holding a bottle in my hands, and downed it in one go like it was a toast. Then I closed my eyes and made a birthday wish in front of the cake, and blew out all the candles in one breath. For the gift portion, Kiki spent her pocket money to buy a movie picture book of a 1-star dance, and placed it in front of me. She nudged it over toward me with just one finger, asking hesitantly, "Look, the stone flower in the wooden box has bloomed. Won't you go check it out?" Then it was Dad's turn. He handed me a small blue bottle that looked a lot like the kind of calcium gluconate oral solution from commercials, but the label on it read, "First Grade Evolution Nutrient Solution." Dad Songqing grinned happily and said, "You can drink this directly. It's even easier for the body to absorb than honeybug resin." After thanking everyone for their gifts, I tilted my head back and drank the nutrient solution down. Instantly, a cool, refreshing sensation spread from my throat all the way down to my feet. The energy gauge jumped up directly, giving 2 attribute points. Right after that, a whole string of notifications popped up. 1 full year of grinding had paid off. The first milestone was finally unlocked. now having 30 constitution points, was roughly equivalent to an average healthy adult male, and a fit one at that. I then pulled up the detailed reward breakdown. Among all my current talents and skills, the beast form gave the biggest combat boost. Then I read through the description of the passive talent reward, Carnivore. This was a non-combat talent, no upgrades, but it could be stacked indefinitely. Going forward with daily training combined with the Carnivore talent, both fatigue and injury recovery would happen much faster. After reading through the rewards, my eyes moved to the next evolution target. At 30 constitution points right now, I was equivalent to a healthy adult, so at 100 points, that should be the human body's limit. As for the ultimate form, could that be something beyond human limits? But at that moment, two words floated up in my mind: transcendent. With a new target in sight, I felt energized all over again. After all, the first target went smoothly. How far off could the second be? That same night I ran a test of my body's capabilities after the evolution. Dad Songqing stood to the side with his phone, recording the whole thing. Whether it was strength, long jump, the 100-meter dash, or the intelligence assessment afterward, my results in everything were all a big leap above the prodigy program threshold. Never expected that his son had barely turned one, and already met every single requirement for the prodigy program application. So Dad Songqing uploaded all the application materials right then and there. Then, father and son called over Yeson and shared the good news of the successful application. Then together the whole family sat waiting eagerly for the official reply. Just as everyone assumed the registration office had already closed for the day, and they'd have to wait until tomorrow for a response, there was suddenly a knock at the door. "Excuse me, is Mr. Songqing home? I'm a staff member from the registration office." At the same time, the inbox received a message notifying them that the staff member had arrived. They actually came to the door directly. That fast? After verifying the visitor's identity, Dad finally let the person in. The visitor was the deputy director of the Provincial Education Department's Elite Talent Development Division. After the door closed, Gu Weijun reviewed the registration information with the couple, and then asked, "Where is little Song Jiyu?" Songqing took a deep breath and opened the bedroom door. His kid had been keeping a low profile for so long, it was time to let the talent show. Gu Weijun looked at this child walking smoothly and speaking clearly, then at the 1-year-old on the form in his hand. Even though he had seen far too many child prodigies in his time, and had mentally prepared himself, he still felt that this world was just utterly absurd. He then asked me a few questions, confirming my identity and my willingness to participate. Finally he completed my official registration. Once the registration was done, he pulled a watch with an electronic screen out of his case, and told me to put it on. But when I put it on, I found I couldn't take it off. Gu Weijun smiled and explained. From behind the shoe cabinet, the cat Pink Sixie was hiding, quietly watching the stranger. But she was startled when the stranger suddenly noticed her. Gu Weijun reminded them, "Didn't you say the little one has the ability to communicate with cats? Feel free to bring this spirit creature along. It'll probably come in useful during the selection assessment." To secure the 10 million prodigy development grant, Mom Yeson took me on an overnight flight to the child prodigy selection base in Jingzhou. 2 hours later we arrived at the destination. When we were brought to a pitch-black dormitory building, we assumed since it was lights-out time, everyone would be asleep. But the moment we stepped into the first floor, we found two 6- or 7-year-old kids standing face to face in a standoff, the tension running high. One of them had their hands on their hips, holding a bottle of Waha purified water, looking very smug. "I can pee 5 meters, can you?" The other kid standing nearby pressed his lips together, and then slurped 2 long strings of snot straight into his mouth. He smacked his lips and shot back, "I can eat raw snot, 2 at a time. Can you top that?" The 2 little geniuses were each showing off their own talents. Neither one could beat the other. It basically ended in a draw. Right in the middle of their standoff, they suddenly noticed several people entering the first floor. Both of them immediately tried to slip away. General Go called out quickly, "Wait, where is your teacher Shen? Looks like she went out." Before he even finished saying that, the 2 of them were already gone. I looked around curiously. The outer perimeter was a military base, while the interior housed the prodigy selection facility. Keeping all the prodigies inside a military compound was definitely the most effective way to keep outside threats away. Just as General Gu was pulling out his phone to call ahead for someone to meet us, a young woman with gold-rimmed glasses walked toward them holding documents. When she spotted General Gu, she gave him a friendly greeting exciting, Director Gu. Your province really brought a surprise for the base this time around. In 15 years of the Prodigy Development Program, today is literally the first time a registrant who just turned 1 has shown up. General Gu laughed and shook her hand. Don't be too surprised, Dr. Shin. This child really is something different. Oh really? Then I'll be sure to observe this one carefully. Saying that, Dr. Shin's gaze landed on me. I looked up and noticed the name tag on Dr. Shin's chest. Transcendent Trait Research Institute, Shun Wenjun. Dr. Shin said a few words to Mom Yesan, then turned to ask me, Little Song Ji, is there anything you need? Seeing that I was still staring at her chest, she joked, Are you hungry? Want some milk? Sorry, I don't have any. I gave a deadpan reply. I can already eat solid food. She very naturally picked me up, gave my face a little pinch, and apparently liked the texture, because she looked over at Yesan and said, So cute, can I kiss him? Of course, go right ahead. This kid loves it when people kiss him. What do you mean go right ahead? And what do you mean I love it? When did I ever love it? Before I even had a chance to object, Dr. Shin had already planted several kisses on me, leaving my whole face covered in slobber. Right after, Dr. Shin led us to the assigned dorm. It was a fully equipped apartment, not very different from home. Get some good rest. We'll start the assessment process tomorrow. Saying that, she handed Yesan an access card, and then left. Once we had gotten the room in order, there was a sudden knock at the door. Mom opened it, and immediately froze. 20 or 30 kids were crammed around the doorway, every single one craning their neck, peering into the room with nosy curiosity. Word is there's a 1-year-old little monster here. Yesan shook her head with a helpless smile and stepped aside. Come on, let your son meet his competition. I walked up and looked. With a slightly exasperated expression, I said, It's this late. Don't you people ever sleep? We do sleep. We just got woken up by those 2 troublemakers. The kids pointed at the 2 culprits, who were none other than the P kid and the snot kid from the standoff. Seeing that the little one who spoke to them was really very young, they excitedly fired off questions one after another. Do you wear split pants or diapers? If you get hungry, do you cry right away? Can you fight? If I hit you, will you cry for your mom? That last question caught my interest a little. I stared at the kid in the overalls who asked it, flashing a meaningful smile. You'll find out. The following morning, at the base hospital, I went through blood tests, urine tests, hair samples, and every kind of procedure you could think of. Then, following Dr. Shin's instructions, I operated the electronic watch. A prompt window popped up on the screen. At that point, Dr. Shin explained, the potential score is the core indicator for whether you pass the selection. Everything you do while you're here counts as evaluation. We look for children with high potential scores. I nodded, indicating I understood. Now, knowing what I was dealing with, my usual routine was to eat, sleep, and absolutely blow everyone away. So I just slowly show off my daily life from here. Just then the watch buzzed again. I had originally assumed the selection would be exams, physical assessments, maybe some sparring at most. Turns out right off the bat it was a classroom lecture. Seeing the name of the course, I got extremely curious. In today's class, we will be learning about spirit cultivation methods. In the small classroom, a white-haired teacher was explaining the introductory concepts of spirit cultivation. The 4 students in attendance had all just arrived in the past few days, and 3 of the others were familiar faces. P kid, snot kid, and overalls kid. All 3 were half listening and half spacing out, constantly turning sideways to make eyes at me. Someone this small, can they even follow along? Snot kid muttered quietly. The old teacher shot him a glance, and continued, the fundamental method of spirit cultivation is meditation. Combined with a special elixir, the spirit can break free from the body's constraints during meditation, and enter the higher dimensional world. After explaining the meditation method, the teacher took out 4 vials of elixir, 1 for each person. I glanced at the name of the elixir, opened the cap and slowly drank it. Surprisingly sweet. In the next moment, I felt like I was floating. It felt like my whole body was lifted off the ground. My senses gradually began to blur. Following the teacher's guidance, my consciousness felt disoriented, and quickly entered a space that was dark and deeply still. Inside the meditation, keep your awareness moving forward. Don't stop. Sounds simple enough, but after a while, I started to feel the pressure. It was like walking forward with your eyes closed. Even knowing there was nothing ahead of you, you still couldn't keep going too far. Not even a short stretch in, the urge to open your eyes would kick in. And in that moment, deep in meditation, the only thing I could do was keep walking forward on instinct. 8 minutes in, P kid and snot kid, were sweating on their foreheads, breathing hard, and voluntarily broke out of meditation. Overall's kid lasted longer, opening his eyes after 10 minutes, and looked at the two rivals, with a weak but smug smile. Then all three of them turned and stared at me. Their expressions went from surprised to shocked. Was the little one's mental strength actually stronger than theirs? The three of them walked out of the classroom with very strange looks. The moment they stepped out, they couldn't hold back any longer and started shouting, "Come everyone, there's a monster in here." Before long, a bunch of kids came running over and pressed themselves against the classroom window, peeking in. "He's not sleeping, is he? No way. Whatever the reason, could you actually fall asleep here? No way. Why would anyone pull at their own ears?" The discussion outside was lively. While back inside the classroom, I slowly opened my eyes. I checked the time, and saw that only 14 minutes had passed. But somehow the feeling it gave me was like going through 3 days and 3 nights. After letting out a sigh, I opened the attribute panel. Seeing the change in the data, I was happy again. This was the first time I had gained spirit attribute growth through actual training. Looks like coming here was the right call. After entering the Prodigy selection base, I quickly finished my first course. Looking at the names of the upcoming courses, I felt genuinely excited. Before, all my spirit attribute growth had come entirely from panel reward attribute points. I never expected there were actual cultivation methods for the spirit in this world. But just as I finished one meditation session and was about to start another, the old teacher stopped me just in time. After class I looked at the info shown on the watch. Seriously, 1 point just like that? Was it really that easy to rack up points? What I didn't know was that, in this spirit cultivation class, aside from Overall's kid also earning 1 point, both P-Kid and Snot Kid scored nothing. During the second lesson, the old teacher explained the changes that come from continued meditation training. As everyone knows, the shortest path between 2 points is a straight line. But what happens when you elevate the dimension? After saying that, he folded the white paper and brought points A and B together. An ordinary person walking from point A to point B has to travel 10 centimeters, but a transcendent being, using higher dimensional laws, can arrive instantly. We call this kind of transcendent ability spatial compression. After the morning classes ended, my head was spinning. Just 2 classes had thrown my whole understanding of the world into complete upheaval. Well then, this really was a fascinating world. For lunch, everyone got in free by scanning their faces. After loading up on a lot of meat, I also asked the cafeteria auntie to crush up 2 pieces of honey bug resin. When they heard I ate honey bug resin every day, P-Kid's eyes went wide with disbelief. "Are you missing your taste buds? That stuff tastes like garbage, and you eat it every single day?" Watching me stir the crushed honey bug resin into water to dissolve it, a strong pungent smell spread through the air. P-Kid, sitting across from me, almost gagged right then and there. "You just get used to it eventually," I said it totally unbothered, gave it a quick stir, and threw it back all at once. What I didn't expect was that my calm and casual attitude would set off a challenge response around the table. Everyone was convinced that no 1-year-old kid could possibly handle it, so they followed my lead and tried it themselves. But after just 1 sip, they all immediately started gagging. After lunch, I went back to the dorm, opened the watch screen, and saw a ranking board made by a participant named Maduaxio Peiji, showing daily potential score results. A total of 98 people were ranked. I had earned 5 points in half a day, and was ranked 45th. The top-ranked one, who went by One Punch Super, had scored 11 points something on day 1. In the afternoon, a bus took all the kids to the sports hall. When I saw the wide-open training space, and all the equipment laid out, my eyes lit up and I was completely fired up. After learning that the training duration and intensity were all self-directed, I made a beeline for the barehanded combat zone in the martial arts gym. I ignored the side glances from others, and locked in completely on every word the coach said, even standing up to activate my mimicry state, and copying the technical moves the coach demonstrated right on the spot. Coach Yugaofone had been planning to finish the section, and then send the kids away, but halfway through, he suddenly froze. He stared at the kid across from him who was mimicking the moves, his eyes filled with pure shock. This kid's counterattack form was spot on, fluid rhythm, completely at an entry-level standard. Yugaofone pushed through and finished the lesson, then couldn't hold back and immediately asked, How old are you? How long have you been training combat arts? Coach you. I just turned 1. I've been training in martial arts for a few months. A kid sitting next to me heard that and couldn't hold back a gasp. Started training before even turning 1? Am I the crazy one? Or has this whole world gone insane? I gave a bashful little laugh. Ha ha ha. I just didn't have anything else to do at first, so I picked something to fill the time. After learning that I had basically self-taught everything in just a few months to get this far, Coach Yu Gaofeng pulled out a business card and handed it to me. He thumped his chest and promised me, whether or not you pass the selection, if you ever want to go down the path of a professional fighter, reach out to me anytime. After 20 minutes of training, during a break, I went to use the bathroom, but when I walked up to the urinal, I realized it was way too high for me, and I couldn't even reach it. Right then, P-Kid was standing on the corridor with his hands on his hips, asking the person next to him, "Think I can pee from out here into the partition?" Before anyone could answer, he opened his pants, and with a hissing sound and the splashing of water, it really did sound like he made it, into the squat toilet drain. After finishing, P-Kid gave his little hand a shake. This is my talent, unbeatable throughout all of Hua Kingdom. Since the kids in the base were all pretty young, with limited stamina, they'd train for a bit and then rest. But I cherished this chance to have professional coaching. Yu Gaofeng was also very patient, directly pointing out the flaws in my technique. Taking this opportunity, I ran through all the fundamentals once from start to finish. After the training session ended, I checked the career panel, very satisfied with the rate of skill improvement. At that point, the classes in the barehanded combat zone were wrapping up one by one. Everyone gathered in the center of the gym. The sparring segment had finally arrived. A few coaches stood around the ring as safety spotters. After the rules were announced, fighters from different disciplines went head to head, lighting the whole place up with excitement. Watching different styles clash on the same platform for the first time, I felt like every second was giving me something. With my mimicry state on, I was copying moves in real time as soon as I spotted a good technique. In mimicry state, the learning speed was absurd, and the career panel kept refreshing numbers non-stop. Then, after a few rounds on the ring, all the boxers and street fighters in the room had been wiped out. "You guys are weak, let me show you how it's done." Saying that, P-Kid set up a boxing stance and jumped up onto the ring. She challenged a wrestler, who grinned darkly, and charged straight in. P-Kid stepped in close, and the moment she was tight against him, she twisted her waist and thrust her hip, swinging her rear end hard, and just launching the wrestler clean off his feet. She patted her little waist with pride, and smirked. "Ha ha ha, when you pee facing the wind your aim goes sideways, this hip power of mine has no weakness." The whole room fell dead silent. I watched with my mouth twitching. Looks like everyone who made it into the space had something going for them. I thought about my own fighting style. I'd keep the Sonda focus, but also pick up some wrestling techniques to strengthen my ground game. Speaking of which, I'd been watching long enough. It was about my turn. Thinking that, I got up and stepped onto the ring. When I stepped up, the entire crowd below went dead quiet. Nobody wanted to come up. I waited for a bit, reading the expressions on everyone's faces, and roughly understood why. After thinking for a moment, I smiled and said, "Who wants to trade 3 moves with me? Just see if I can hold on." Think of it as doing me a training favor. Thanks in advance for the help. As soon as those words hit the air, there was finally some movement. 3 moves shouldn't lead to any embarrassment, and helping a little freak like this was worth making an acquaintance. Fine, I'll come up. A crew cut boy stood up at that moment. The sparring began. First move, I drove forward on short legs, stomping hard off the ground, charging in an instant. Once I got in close, I swung around to the boy's side and grabbed his supporting leg. The crew cut boy stayed calm, pulled his leg back and went for the body, dropping his center of gravity. In that instant, every muscle in my body locked up tight, and with the surge of muscle power, what had been a loose training shirt pulled snug across my frame. In an instant, I went from a seemingly harmless little baby to a juvenile human beast. Doubled strength combined with a 2.1x burst coefficient. Explosive force released, unstoppable. Headfirst into the opponent's solar plexus, triggering exploit strike. The crew cut boy couldn't hold against that terrifying impact, and he was sent flying off his feet. Just one move. The fight was already decided. The whole room went completely silent. Everyone, kids and coaches alike, looked absolutely stunned. I deactivated beast form, got up, and went over to help the crew cut boy up. With a casual smile I said, "Thanks for the sparring. First base combat victory complete." I hadn't even had a second to celebrate when suddenly a panel notification popped up. "Hey coach, when it's dinner time, come get me." After saying that, everything went dark in front of me, and I just keeled over stiff as a board. Not only did I fall asleep on the spot, I even started snoring sweetly. When I finally woke up and opened my eyes, I found myself already back in the dorm. I checked the watch screen and saw my potential score. After eating dinner, Mom timed it and opened the laptop, and the whole family started a video call. The moment Dad Songching's face appeared on screen, came a rapid slapping sound of feet on the floor. "Let me go first. I missed my brother. I want to talk to him." Then Keek's little face squeezed into the frame, her expression full of barely contained excitement. "Brother, did you pass the selection yet? Did you get the prize money? Relax. Results take 2 or 3 months at the fastest." I waved my hand and looked at her with all the authority in the world. "Don't rush. While you're at school, study hard. Behave yourself at home. Don't make Dad angry. Got it?" "Got it." Kiki looked perfectly obedient, as she nodded along listening. Then gradually something felt off. Why did it feel like she was being lectured by her little brother? After ending the video call, I started on the after-class homework. Since solving the problems required knowledge from middle school physics, and to make everything look appropriately reasonable, I opened the base-issued tablet. With my fingers scrolling non-stop across the tablet, I blazed through the flipping textbook content at a glance. At the speed of speed reading, 2 hours later, the elementary school curriculum for all grades had already been reviewed. Immediately after, I also pulled up the middle school physics textbook. While reading, I thought through the video from the homework question. A transcendent being can make the water in a glass instantly freeze, then make the ice instantly melt and evaporate, and even whip up a storm inside a sealed room. How do you explain this? After going through the physics textbook once, drawing on 27.1 spirit attribute points, I easily identified the relevant knowledge: temperature and heat. Rather than using conventional physics thinking to answer, I combined it with higher dimensional laws, and came up with a reasoned hypothesis. After sending the email to the old teacher, I quickly got back a positive response. Just then, the tablet app pinged with a new update. The previous top scorer, One Punch Super, who had scored 11.7 points on day 1, had now been displaced by me with a day 1 score of 19 points. As soon as that jaw-dropping score went up, the comments exploded. A lot of skepticism in the mix too. But then unexpectedly, One Punch Super himself showed up in the comments to clarify. The comments instantly went completely silent. It was like you could feel the soundless shock through the screen. So the 19 points probably was real. I just glanced at the comments section once, and faced with the doubters, I had no need to respond at all. I opened the panel and looked at the next target. Just 3 more attribute points and I'd hit the milestone. Once that evolution achievement was done, there would be form rewards, and talent rewards, all very high quality. Honestly, not only was the main character excited, even the narrator was getting excited too, wondering what kind of rewards were waiting. But once meditation training was fully mastered, my spirit attribute would increase by 0.1 every day. The achievement of reaching the initial mind form was genuinely just within reach. With consistent daily meditation, my meditation sessions kept getting longer. A week later, from the original 14 minutes per session, I had pushed it up to 17 minutes per session. Even though I still hadn't sensed the higher dimensional laws, I was surprised to discover that without drinking the base-provided meditation elixir, I simply couldn't enter the meditation state at all. So I went to find the old teacher, and asked if he could give me extra bottles given my young age. The old teacher turned me down on the spot, but he still gave me a detailed explanation. To sense the higher dimensional laws, you need not only powerful spirit and physical strength, but also 1 in 500 million luck. Only elites whose bodies approach the genetic limit have the right to push toward the transcendent realm. If your luck is incredible, you might sense the higher laws on your very first meditation. If luck isn't on your side, even 100 extra bottles of meditation elixir won't help. Since touching higher dimensional laws wasn't happening anytime soon, I'd just keep meditating to grind attributes. Based on the old teacher's description, the elite level physique was probably the same as my next evolution target. That evening after dinner, I went to the training hall to work out as usual. The moment I walked into the training room, I saw a bald kid, his head looking like a braised egg. After asking around, turns out he was the one-punch super from the leaderboard. At that moment, Braised Egg was doing a 100-kilogram bench press. He looked only about 6 or 7 years old. He could reportedly reach 90 kilograms, while I was focused on my own training. A sigh of sorts came from behind me. That's a bit of a waste, isn't it? Turning around, I found Braised Egg was talking to me. A waste of what? I didn't quite follow what he meant. A waste that you have no transcendent trait. You know, a lot of people in the base were born with transcendent traits. Without even trying that hard, they can rank A, some even S, but your potential score is high, and you're disciplined enough, just without a transcendent trait. It's hard to catch the eye of those arrogant specialists. You might end up capping at A. I didn't argue with Braised Egg. Instead I smiled and asked him, what about you then? You have a transcendent trait, an ironclad willpower. S rank is the base's limit. It's not my limit. I found it interesting what Braised Egg was trying to say, so I asked him, then why are you even telling me this? He looked dead serious at this point. If the base doesn't rate US, you can come join me. I'll give US treatment on my end. Here was a kid only 6 or 7 years old, already trying to recruit people, and poaching from the base no less. I didn't directly respond to his invitation. Instead I got up and started loading plates onto the barbell. As the plates kept adding up, the weight climbed rapidly. 90 kilograms, 110 kilograms, 130 kilograms, 150 kilograms. Braised Egg's previously calm face had completely changed. His eyes were filled with shock. Once I was done loading, I grinned over at him and said, actually, S rank isn't my limit either. With that, I hoisted up the 150-kilogram barbell and knocked out 3 clean, standard squats. After finishing, I set the barbell back on the rack with a resounding crash, and everyone in the room froze. Braised Egg also stood completely still, not saying a word, his expression turning very serious. He probably understood what I was trying to say. Braised Egg took a deep breath, gave me a nod, and turned around to leave with a bit of a smile. Just now I had activated beast form and pulled off a big show. To avoid any injury, tonight's strength training had to end early. I called out to P-Kid, and we were about to head back to the dorm together. But where had Snot Kid gone? At that moment, in another training room, Snot Kid was doing 360-degree grand swings on the horizontal bar. After spinning around several times, something flew off when he landed. He smeared all the unidentified liquid off his face and into his mouth, looking deeply satisfied while muttering, "Yep, feels like I got stronger again." Quickly, a new week began. Most of the second week's courses were wilderness survival and outdoor adventure-related skills training. I picked things up fast and picked up several solid skills along the way. But even after learning all these exploration skills, the Explorer career panel still hadn't unlocked. Either way, the plan was to first grab the initial mind form evolution achievement, then figure out the rest after. Everything was moving forward just like that. Before long, my evolution gauge filled up again, and I got 2 more attribute points, which I put all into spirit. The panel flashed, and a string of notifications came popping out. Same as the juvenile human beast reward, 1 form and 1 talent. With that, I immediately pulled up the detailed description. Being able to activate the super brain state anytime now, I was very satisfied. Then I checked the merged talent rewards description. Neat poet, spirit and constitution alike. Now both gained growth speed and recovery speed bonuses. After going through the full panel once, looking at all the abilities I had accumulated, I felt a deep sense of accomplishment. At the same time, thinking about pushing both constitution and spirit further. The next course should give me the qualifications to push for the transcendent. Taking a rough estimate of the time, the goal was to hit that milestone before turning 3. Once all the kids had mastered various wilderness survival skills, a Holovoid course officially began. That day I geared up with the equipment the base provided, along with Pink Sixie, and familiar voice calling from behind. In the wilderness survival classes over the past few days, I had used the super brain form and mimicry state to pick up skills at lightning speed, ranking near the top of the class. But P-Kid was a bit clumsy with her hands, struggling with a lot of the tools. So the moment she entered the old world, she made a firm decision to latch onto someone stronger. I could see her shamelessly jogging to catch up. The two of us ran toward the forest direction, only about half a minute in, when P-Kid suddenly let out a low cry. "What the?" Pink Sixie got a scare from the sudden shout, and nearly did a backflip. I also thought something had happened, and quickly turned to ask what was wrong, only to see P-Kid tap on the tablet a few times, looking completely devastated. "Oh no, there's no internet here. earlier. I was going to play ranked matches. You're out here doing wilderness survival. And you're thinking about playing games? Pink Sixie turned her head back too. Right then, both the human and the cat were staring at P-Kid, with the exact same burning glare. That finally got her feeling a little embarrassed, and she quietly shoved the tablet back into her bag, suddenly feeling like this teammate was a bit unreliable. Why don't we just go separate ways? I'm only 1 year old. I'm afraid I'll hold you back. As soon as she heard that, P-Kid panicked. Boss, don't leave me behind. I can be a real help. I know how to fish. My bait technique is one of a kind. What does bait technique mean? I played dumb and asked. Bait technique is when you toss some bait into the water, and the fish get attracted and swim over. My bait is the best there is. That got my attention. Tell me more then. What kind of bait do you use? P-Kid grinned wickedly. I pee into the water, and the fish come rushing out like crazy. P-bait. I suddenly felt my composure was slipping a bit, so I tried again. I'm only 1 year old. I'll really drag you down. We're really not a good match. Don't. P-Kid quickly added. I also brought a spirit hound. It'll definitely be useful. At that, I noticed a small golden retriever, trailing way behind, tongue out, trotting along panting. It's a waterhound, super fast swimmer, and my brother told me that the old world the base arranged has an extremely low danger level. Combat shouldn't be a big worry. Your brother's been here too? He came last year, got ranked A. I nodded. Not long after entering the forest, Pink Sixie, who was running ahead, suddenly let out a sharp warning meow. A purple-greenish little wild boar burst out from the bushes. Spotting us, it turned and bolted. P-Kid saw it, and immediately shouted, "These little wild boars are the sneakiest things. We absolutely have to catch it." I had P-Kid and the golden retriever hold back, to guard against other wild boars sneaking up, while I drew out a small knife, and chased it down with Pink Sixie. One stab later, the wild boar went down. After looking at the fallen boar, P-Kid said with relief, "Lucky we got it though, because this creature is really treacherous. It loves to ambush you, especially when you're lying down asleep. If you're sleeping with your legs spread open, it'll charge right between your legs." I couldn't help twitching the corner of my mouth. Just hearing that made me feel a chill somewhere. Hey, is your brother okay? He's fine. Not bad, though. He used to compare things with me all the time. Not so much anymore. Any tips for dealing with this kind of boar? When you sleep, just keep your legs together. P-Kid and I found a spot near a small stream with our backs to a big tree, and started building a shelter. The two of us worked together, and put up a basic wooden frame for a hut. A bit breezy, but it would do for now. No major issues. Right after, I used the small knife to process the wild boar, skinning, draining the blood, cutting the meat, boiling it, adding a bit of salt. Before long, a big pot of meat and broth was all in both of our stomachs. Golden Retriever also got a big chunk. Pink Sixie meanwhile had caught a few sweet potato-like little creatures, and taken care of her own meal. We hung the leftover meat up high on a tree with rope, to let it dry out. This would be enough to last me 2 or 3 days, no problem at all. As the sky darkened, we lay down at the entrance of the shelter, warming up by the fire, having the two spirit creatures take turns keeping watch. P-Kid and I fell asleep before long. In the middle of the night, I suddenly felt something on me. I opened my eyes and found it was Pink Sixie licking my face. I understood immediately what she meant. There was an animal sneaking in for our meat. The golden retriever had also sensed something was off, and darted into the shelter, to try to wake up its owner. I immediately motioned for everyone to stay quiet. Then I quietly woke P-Kid up, and quickly explained the situation. The 2 humans and 2 animals tiptoed silently out of the shelter, and crept toward the big tree where the meat was hanging. Something was faintly visible climbing on the tree, already getting close to where the meat was hanging. P-Kid grabbed a rock ready to throw, but I sensed something was off, and stopped her. I clicked on the flashlight and shone it up into the tree, and there was a small girl, climbing the tree completely silently hand over hand. When the flashlight beam lit up the trunk, the girl froze, then slowly lowered her head, revealing an awkward but somehow polite little smile. "You caught me." At the shelter entrance, P-Kid looked at her with a fierce expression. Just moments ago this little girl had tried to run, and only after P-Kid tripped and face-planted herself did they actually manage to grab her. Talk fast. Why were you stealing our meat? Seeing the little girl holding her smile the whole time, P-Kid got increasingly annoyed, because I had no meat to eat. The little girl lowered her head apologetically. Such a blunt, honest answer, that left P-Kid just staring helplessly. In the firelight, I looked at the little girl and recognized her. Her name was Shouty. pretty good fighter. Her daily ranking was often in the top 5. Your nighttime behavior disturbed our rest and drained some of the flashlight's limited battery, I stated calmly. The losses she had caused. Shouty nodded, then stretched both hands out, palms facing up, closed her eyes and said, "Go ahead and hit me." P-Kid replied with irritation, "Why would we hit you? Because when you steal and get caught you get hit. Don't you know that? We're not going to hit you, but you need to compensate for our losses. If you find anything of value, bring it out. If you don't have any, then the grass clothing you wove needs to be paid to us." Hearing that, Shouty pulled the grass outfit tighter around herself, but she genuinely had nothing of value on her. "Can intelligence count as compensation?" I nodded. "Go ahead, let's hear it." Shouty began telling the story of her exploration that day. After everyone split up, she went alone, deeper into the jungle. Pushing further in, she discovered a mountain cave deep in the dense forest. But the moment she entered the cave, she was attacked by several wolfhounds. The wolfhounds had sharp fangs and powerful claws, very strong. After losing her backpack, she fled through the mountain valley. Unfamiliar with the terrain, she nearly got run down by the wolfhounds. At a critical moment, a huge shadowy figure almost 2 meters tall appeared deep in the mountain valley, accompanied by a heavy booming footstep sound. The wolfhounds heard it and instantly abandoned their target and fled. After making it out of the valley, she had no energy left to hunt for food. That was when she spotted the wild boar meat hanging from the tree, and so late at night, decided to sneak some. After hearing Shouty's account, combined with the intelligence P-Kid provided, I analyzed that the giant 2-meter figure was probably not something simple. Just as I was about to dig deeper and verify the truth of Shouty's account, P-Kid said very seriously, "I have a way to tell." After saying that, she walked up to Shouty. "Tell your whole story again, but backwards. Starting from stealing the meat, go back in reverse." Shouty looked a bit confused, but did as told, and recounted everything from tail to head. After listening, P-Kid pulled me aside and said quietly, "Everything she said is most likely true. People generally only make up lies in chronological order. Going backwards trips them up, and it becomes obvious something's fake." "You actually know this trick?" "I learned it from my dad, actually. One time he came back from a business trip, and I told him I'd been home studying all week. He told me to retell everything I'd done, in reverse order." "And then what?" I asked curiously. "Bags of coins were laid out nearby, several dozen of them." Right then, her stomach let out a growling sound. Hearing about Shouty's earlier ordeal, I estimated her combat ability was above P-Kid's. Both sides could actually team up to go back and explore that cave. With that thought in mind, I grabbed a small handful of coins and put them in her hand. "The intelligence you brought is worth a lot. These are a gift for you." Shouty's eyes lit up, and she immediately wolfed them down, polishing off the coins in 2 bites. Clearly this little bit wasn't going to fill her up. Seeing the timing was right, I made my proposal. "Want to team up? Explore that cave together. Half of the coins left here go to you, and on top of that I'll throw in a piece of meat." Hearing my invitation to team up, Shouty clearly hesitated. She glanced over at the pot of coins, fought back the temptation, quietly said thank you, and with a deep reluctant look, darted quickly into the jungle depths. Early on the 4th morning, P-Kid and I talked things over, and decided to head to the cave as soon as possible. We packed up quickly, 1 cat and 1 dog setting off together again. After 3 hours of trekking, we finally reached the destination. So Shouty spent half a day wandering around this creepy place. P-Kid looked at the mountain path covered in claw marks, let out a gasp. Then her expression went serious. "Be careful. If we get identified as being in danger, and the base sends people to rescue us, the exploration counts as failed." After that reminder, I took Pink Sixie and went in first, but after only a few steps, a dark figure appeared ahead. This was exactly the wolf Shouty had mentioned. As the area's top hunter, this wolf spotted me, its eyes blazing with vicious light, letting out the low rumble only wild beasts make. I had P-Kid hold back as cover, while I grabbed my small knife and charged in. The wolf never expected such a tiny 2-legged creature to actually dare attack it. It roared furiously and bared its sharp fangs. "Here we go." Honestly speaking, the psychological pressure of facing a wild beast was far greater than fighting on a ring. After steadying my nerves and coordinating with Pink Sixie, I first moved around the wolf to assess its strength. Pink Sixie leaped and dodged, constantly drawing the wolf's attention. Finally, after 2 minutes, I spotted an opening, instantly activated beast form, closed the gap, drove the small knife into the back of the wolf's neck, triggering the exploit strike damage bonus. The wolf let out a pained howl and crashed to the ground. With a light step, everyone's mood was good. After a short rest, we kept going. Following Shouty's description, half an hour later, we found the hidden cave, tucked away in an excavated corner. But the scene in front of us was a bit jaw-dropping. Over 30 wolfhounds were all gathered together, howling collectively at the cave entrance. P-Kid stared at this massive situation, and her legs went a little soft. "Let's pull back first. If they spot us, it'll be a mess." I nodded, and was just beginning to slowly back away, when suddenly a blue light from deep inside the cave flashed. Right after, a continuous rhythmic sound started up, like heavy footsteps hitting the ground. After the wolfhounds went quiet, I sharpened my focus, and finally got a clear look at what Shouty had described. The massive figure, there, a mechanical robot with a colorful metal shell, was swinging its mechanical arm, driving away the wolfhounds that tried to push into the cave, while also making sounds none of us could understand. After we turned on the translator, what we kept hearing was the same repeated words: "Side nanny robot, ready to serve you. Side nanny robot, ready to serve you." At that point, after several rounds of attacking, the wolfhounds saw they couldn't get into the cave, and slowly retreated. The nanny robot also didn't give chase. The heavy clanking footstep sound started again. Then, its figure disappeared back into the depths of the cave. "What do we do now?" After reaching a safe area, P-Kid muttered to herself. "The cave is definitely going in, but we have to be smart about it. After all, we're here to explore, not to be cannon fodder." Since there were way too many wolfhounds, we decided to set traps and take them out one by one. "Looks like we'll need a few more people to come and help." Saying that, P-Kid and I searched outside the valley, looking for materials to build traps, while also keeping an eye out for potential partners. After working hard for half a day, not far away, we heard the sound of an argument. "I can use snotbait to catch fish and rabbits. What do you even do?" "I play basketball." "And singing, dancing, and rap." Hearing voices I actually recognized, I immediately started laughing. Looks like the help had found us, following the plan from before.
Everything was going very smoothly. The 40 or so wolf beasts in the valley had been worn down by us for 5 or 6 days. Only a few of them were still alive. That's when they finally realized something was wrong. And then they all rushed out of the valley in a panic. After dealing with the wolf beasts blocking the cave entrance, the 4 of us slowly approached the cave. That's when we heard that booming sound again. That impressively built nanny robot walked out once more, and this time it made a welcoming sound. Even though the nanny robot practically acted like your parent, facing something that could take on a whole pack of wolf beasts alone, we didn't make any reckless moves. I studied the robot carefully, and recalled what the old teacher had once taught us. When facing a foreign civilization, don't rush to show hostility. Prioritize communication first. The robot was still repeating that same phrase, its fixed scripted message. So I picked up the translator and mimicked the robot's pronunciation to reply. "I need service." The robot froze the moment it heard that. It just went completely still. Its gaze locked right onto me. Infant detected. Then both of its mechanical arms began to extend outward. At times the arms would rise up, as if trying to wave the others away. But then the arms would lower again, like it was about to scoop me up. After a few minutes of that internal conflict, there were suddenly 2 crackling electrical sounds. The blue light in the robot's eyes went out. It just stood there frozen, completely motionless. So the blogger wants to remind everyone, never hesitate or second guess yourself when doing something. Wasting time like that can literally crash your own system. Anyway, back to the story. I carefully walked forward a few steps, but the robot showed no reaction at all. Seeing that it was truly out of commission, it sidled past and quietly slipped by. The group turned on their flashlights. The tunnel had no side paths. You could see all the way to the end. Behind the metal door wedged between 2 rock walls was a small living base. At the very back of the base, 2 bodies, a man and a woman, were leaning against each other. I was stunned. They were actually humanoid beings. I had always assumed foreign civilizations would look like strange bizarre aliens, but through a device that looked something like a camera, we learned that these were a pair of hypers with the ability to fly. They had been drawn in by the beauty of this planet, and so they eventually decided to settle down here. But one day, countless tiny black clouds suddenly appeared in the sky. Out of nowhere, the black clouds, those black clouds, were releasing devastating laser beams, blowing the entire world apart. The man and woman rushed out to help, but even powerful hypers were no match for the black clouds. The two of them suffered heavy injuries, and could only retreat and hide inside the base. Since there were no medicines inside to treat hypers, and only one nanny robot, handling basic security and service duties, the two of them calmly met their end. After watching the footage, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. But then, a figure suddenly appeared at the base entrance. Congratulations, it only took you 8 days to find this place. This is truly the most precious ruin of a civilization. The old teacher stepped slowly inside, scrolling through documents on his phone. At that point, he looked over at me again. You really are one lucky little one. That robot's infant protection protocol got triggered by you. Without that, getting past the robot wouldn't have been so easy. Hearing that, I raised the camera and asked, "Teacher, what exactly are those black clouds?" The other kids were just as curious, and they all turned to look. We call them the hunters. They roam the universe, surviving by hunting civilizations. As he said that, the old teacher's expression grew serious. Whenever they find a mature civilization, the hunters launch an attack. And in the end, they destroy the entire surface of the planet, forcing civilization to start over from scratch. Like mowing grass, they cut one batch and wait for the next to grow. That answer made the whole atmosphere feel heavy. So our Earth, has it been targeted by the hunters? That we don't know, but we must always be prepared. As he said this, the old teacher gestured to the group. That is exactly why this selection base brought all of you together. If anyone among you can become a guardian of civilization, then none of the effort from any of us will have been wasted. 1 month later, everyone gathered at the camp. From that last wilderness survival expedition, a total of 5 people were eliminated. Since my score was the highest of anyone, once the rankings were announced, I had broken into the base's top 10. But what excited me most was that my watch had unlocked the Explorer's Mall. Inside this mall, you could purchase all kinds of supplies. I had just finished registering my personal info when, at the same time, a notification automatically popped up on the panel. I clicked on it without hesitation. A brand new eager explorer. A few days later, Luden came to say goodbye. He had passed the selection and become the 27th S-ranked genius in the base's history. After he found me, he handed me a business card. This time it was an invitation, not a recruitment anymore. I underestimated your performance. Even without a hyper trait, you're more than qualified to be rated S rank. His tone was genuinely sincere. If you ever get the chance, you're welcome to come visit our family's company. I took the card and gave a nod. After Luden left, my ranking automatically moved up to 9th place. A few more days passed, and Xiao Dai came to say farewell. He expressed his gratitude to me. During that last rescue expedition, he had a wild start, but still earned a lot of points, and part of that was thanks to me. In the end, he was ranked as A grade. After Xiao Dai left, my ranking had already climbed to 6th place. By then, the legend of the 1-year-old superhero had already spread throughout the base. Because of that, the base made special confidentiality arrangements. From that point on, I basically trained and attended classes alone. Looking at the old teacher who seemed to know everything, I once curiously asked him, "Teacher, are you a hyper?" He took a sip of his tea and smiled mysteriously. "Guess." "Then guess if I'll guess your guess." I turned around and walked away. What a handful. The old man could only glare helplessly from behind. Half a month later, Suspenders was about to leave the base too. He was pretty bummed out. His grade had only come out to C+, but Suspenders wasn't too down about it. He was actually full of hope for the future. "I'm good looking. I can sing and dance. I can play basketball too. Maybe I'll debut someday, become a trainee, and maybe even hit it big." Another week went by, and both Wawa and Snot Kid's grades came in. Wawa got B+, and Snot Kid got B grade. Both of them met the genius standard, and could enjoy all kinds of great benefits. The two of them immediately applied to go home early, to celebrate properly with family and friends. Before they left, I gathered with both of them at the base cafeteria. paying tribute to suspenders. Wawa and Snot Kid put on solemn faces and held up their cups toward the empty seat beside us. Had heroically sacrificed himself. Then Snot Kid said to me, "Your ranking is already number 1. You're either getting S rank or A+ for sure. Ha ha. If even you don't make S rank, then the people running this place should seriously reconsider." Wawa waved her little hand. After passing the selection, she had gotten way more confident than usual, and I have a feeling, a few years from now, I'll still be writing on your coattails. The two of them left their contact info and home addresses, telling me to come visit them sometime. Meanwhile, inside the base conference room, a group of experts were in the middle of a heated debate. In 15 years, not a single S-rank candidate has lacked a hyper trait. One conservative representative spoke up. "I acknowledge that Song Chi's potential is extremely high, but without a hyper trait, the uncertainty for the future is just too great. She might reach elite rank in just a few years, but she might also stay stuck at elite rank her entire life." Her words got several conservative experts nodding in agreement. Suddenly, a voice came from the doorway of the conference room. "What do you all know?" Several experts turned and looked over. There stood an elderly man with white hair, holding a glass mug of tea, striding right in. Everyone quickly stood up and called out, "Elder Minister." The old man settled into the head seat of the conference room. His gaze swept across each of the experts present. "I know very well what all of you are thinking. In the early years, we had such high hopes. We rated many candidates as S rank, but unfortunately, most of them didn't live up to expectations. You're all scared of bearing the responsibility for what comes next, so your assessments have gotten more and more conservative. While that approach is understandable," the old man's tone shifted suddenly. "There's something heavier about this. Could it be that some of you want to use the limited S-rank slots as a favor to sell to hyper families? And so you've been deliberately harsh on candidates from ordinary backgrounds." As soon as those words came out, the conservative experts' faces changed instantly. They all insisted they had absolutely no such intentions. The old man nodded with satisfaction, then dropped the question of rating her down. "The goal for an S rank is not just to be an ordinary hyper. What we want is the most outstanding Skyfield explorer, the ultimate warrior who can protect civilization. That kind of potential, I've seen it in a 1-year-old child. You might think the risk of her stalling is real, but I'd rather take 10 times the risk than give up even the slightest chance." At that moment, a staff member announced the vote had begun. Candidate Song Chi-yu, having passed the Genius Plan assessment criteria, rated as S rank. "Do you approve?" The old man raised his hand first. Dr. Shin, seated at the far end of the table, raised his hand too. Since even the senior leadership was willing to take the risk, most of the experts followed and raised their hands in agreement. At the same time, the latest rating result was passed out of the conference room. Song Chi-yu, the 28th S-rank genius of the Hua Nation Genius Plan, officially recognized. I found out from Dr. Shin that I'd been rated S rank, and honestly, I wasn't surprised. But Mom was absolutely over the moon. These past few days, she'd been chatting with other participants' parents and found out that the gap in treatment between different grades was enormous. Now that her son had been rated the highest possible S rank, calling him a national treasure wouldn't even be an exaggeration. Being S rank now, the goal I'd originally set was already achieved. It was time to go home and see everyone. Right then, Dr. Shin sent a string of characters to my watch. Right now, the Hua Nation Child Genius Protection Act has officially taken effect for you. What I just sent to your watch is your protection serial number. If you ever run into trouble, just report the serial number to the local security department, and you'll get assistance as fast as possible. On top of that, a hyper will be assigned 24 hours a day, in close proximity to protect you. Hearing that, I nodded repeatedly. This is great. I feel so much more secure. Dr. Shin, when does the 10 million development subsidy hit the account? Don't worry. What's yours is yours, nobody can take it. Saying that, Dr. Shin pulled out a financial document and handed it to Yi Shan. The development subsidy funds are mainly disbursed as reimbursements. When the time comes, now that the funds are secured, and the Child Genius Protection Act is in effect, there's just one more thing left. Dr. Shin, Will there be a hyper assigned as my mentor? Has that been decided yet? I asked, full of anticipation. Well, about that. At that moment, Dr. Shin's expression looked a little awkward. A certain someone had broken protocol and rushed ahead to claim the mentor spot. The old teacher's signature move. He gave a bitter laugh. Should be settled soon enough. We'll notify you when it's done. After signing the genius cultivation plan commitment form, we first boarded a private jet and landed at Lu City's Hubei airport. Then we got into a private car. Not long after arriving home, Dad Song Chung sure came rushing back. He'd actually taken leave just to come home. I just knew it. I knew my little one could do it. He was beaming from ear to ear. He'd already ordered a case of Waha beer through delivery and was ready to celebrate. Around 5 o'clock, he went to the street to let loose. Not long after, the front door opened, and a little girl with a big smile came bounding in. She hopped right through the door. Little bro, are you thirsty? Kiki grabbed a can of sparkling water from the fridge and cheerfully set it in front of me. Little bro, are you hungry? At dinner, Kiki placed a big chicken leg on my plate. Little bro, are you tired? After training, Kiki brought a towel and water, and even gave me a little shoulder rub. I squinted with satisfaction, basking in the moment. My status at home had suddenly reached an unprecedented high. Little bro, where's my watch? After a while of the shoulder massage, Keek's patience was running thin, and she finally revealed her true motive. Before she could transform into a human T-Rex, I showed her the shipping progress in the shopping app. After Kiki checked it out, her eyes lit right up. She checked the brand series. That's the most expensive model from Xiaoshantung, and it's a limited edition too, isn't it? For the 2 days while the package hadn't arrived yet, Kiki was showering me with all kinds of attention. Even Yishan couldn't help but laugh. This little brat, she's never been this sweet even to her own parents. Of course, once the watch arrived, the sister experience card expired. But after I announced that all the food bills for meat would be charged to my account, I had Kiki firmly back in my corner. Right now, news of my S-rank rating was only circulating among a small number of higher-ups. The district security chief of Lu City had paid a quiet visit. When the chief asked us what we needed, I stepped up and said that I wanted to make sure my family was safe. The chief agreed without hesitation, arranging dedicated cars and security personnel to escort Mom, Dad, and Kiki to and from school every day. He also provided a large flat in the government official's residential compound. No rent required. Live there for 20 years and the property is ours. The couple was completely overwhelmed. That's when it really sank in for them that their situation was already worlds apart from before. During the move, I trained every single day, while also waiting for my mentor to be confirmed. I didn't expect to wait a whole month before receiving the email notification. Senior Professor Zhou Ming Kai turned out to be that very same old teacher from the base. Turns out he really was a hyper all along. Little one, I'm your mentor now. Surprised? Were you expecting this? Let me set you a small goal. Reach elite rank within 4 years. Do that and there's an even bigger surprise waiting. And if you can't manage it, I'll fly all the way to Lu City to spank your little bottom. I twitched at the corner of my mouth. This old man genuinely seems like someone who would do that. Luckily, that goal posed absolutely no pressure for me. Once you've reached elite rank, we'll talk about school then. As for your training, just follow my arrangements from here on. Having a mentor really takes a load off. I was in a great mood while on the call, thinking to myself, can you really do it? I hung up the phone in high spirits. During the time I was waiting for the mentor news, Kiki had been serving as my sparring partner. Every night we'd practice combat together. Before I went to the base, if I wanted to beat Big Sis, I had to go all out and look for opportunities to win against the odds. Since coming back from the base, we were already at a 50 to 50 level. Keek's mental state took a hit, and she started screaming again. My little brother is a freak. A few days later, mentor Zhou Mingkai called. The training facility and coaches have all been arranged. You get the entire venue to yourself. No waiting in line. Train whatever you want. Very soon, the coach Zhou Mingkai arranged also arrived. She was a young woman with a high ponytail. Hello, I'm your dedicated coach, Tai Chien. Hello, Coach Tai. I put the barbell back on the rack and jogged over, although she'd mentally prepared. When Tai Chien saw the 100-kilogram barbell, the corner of her eye still twitched a bit. After introductions, I reviewed the coach's credentials and had no objections at all, so we locked in the training plan going forward. I was fully satisfied with the coach in every way. Finally I asked, Coach Tai, Tai Qian gave a small smile. The fee isn't high. I'm basically here as a favor. Just charging the friend rate. 2 million a year. I nodded repeatedly, feeling for the first time how precious friendship truly is. When all was tallied up, between the training venue and the coach fees, I was already 8 million in debt. Thankfully it was a deferred low-interest loan, not due until I turned 18, so it wouldn't snowball into something unpayable. After taking on all that debt, I launched into an absolutely insane training mode, vowing to train until I'd earned it all back. Coach Tai never wasted words. Whatever the student wanted to train, she would teach. From that point on, my experience values across all skills began climbing rapidly. Time flew by, with both imitation mode and super brain mode stacked as double buffs. Every day of training had me improving at lightning speed. Spring arrived, the season when infectious bugs break out every year. I remembered around the same time last year, a serious outbreak had hit. Back then, Mom had been stuck at home, teaching students online, but I had always had a feeling that situation might involve something supernatural, so I brought it up with my mentor in rough terms, asking if there was any way to access hyper-related information. Mentor Zhou Mingkai first sent me a referral code, and then followed it up with an app he pushed to me. After installing it and opening it, I typed in the keyword, and the database quickly pulled up a few cases, and sure enough, they were actually connected to hyper abilities. As I read more carefully, my expression gradually turned serious. Every single case was a mass death event caused by a supernatural plague. From the Black Death in medieval Europe to the Spanish flu of 1918, every one of these famous plague disasters had one thing in common. In each of those massive outbreaks, all those massive virus counts, all that massive viral spread, across all those massive plagues, in all those massive outbreaks, something always gets mentioned. From the Black Death in medieval Europe to the Spanish flu of 1918, in all of those famous plague disasters, the shadow of the green-headed flies appeared. Through deep investigation by foreign hypers, the trail pointed toward a special mythological entity, the fallen demon Lord Beelzebub. From medical cases, it had suddenly jumped to a mythological legend. That was quite the leap. Song Chi thought it over and recalled Zhou Mingkai, telling them back at the base, supernatural creatures have existed since ancient times. Ancient people couldn't understand them and worshipped them as divine beings. In reality, those inhuman mythological entities were either alien life from the other side of the rift or human hypers who went wrong during purification.